All right, good morning, everyone. I am Brian Levine, and I'm Vice President of Government Affairs for the Chamber. Welcome to the Montgomery County Chamber's Economic Development Committee meeting for this morning, November 2nd. As we do for all of our committee meetings, please note that we are recording. And for some of the experts here, this committee meets several times a year on the first Wednesday of most months, as we are today. Just a quick advertisement for those who like to attend our other committees as well. Next week on the 16th, our Infrastructure and Land Use Committee is pleased to host Doran Basso, who is in charge of the Purple Line Transit Partners, and they are the concessionaire, and they're running the Purple Line construction. I'm anxious to hear what he has to say about that project, which has just restarted after a couple-year delay. And then on the next day, on November 17th, the Legislative Affairs Committee's meeting, and we're going to have a candidate for office. We'll announce who that is after that person likely wins their election on November 8th, but it's a good one. So, and also, of course, urge you to not forget to vote. Early voting is going on right now. In fact, I'm going to go today and cast my ballot. And of course, we hope that you're coming to our November 10th Business Awards dinner next week on the 10th. It is one of our signature events, and you don't want to miss that. Today, we're honored to have Bill Tompkins, the President and CEO of Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, or as it's going to be called, MCEDC. He's going to talk about his new role, or his new-ish role at MCEDC, and what that's all about, and what MCEDC is working on now and into the future. We've asked him to focus some of his remarks on MCEDC's role in the workforce in the county. And this is part of our continuing discussion in this committee about talent attraction challenges and opportunities, which we focused on the last few meetings. And just a little admin. We're going to forego introductions today since we have such a large crowd. We ask you, if you're able, to put your name and organization into the box. You can do that by clicking on those three little dots in the upper right and going to the bottom of the menu and clicking rename and putting your name and organization in there. It'll be easy for Bill and everyone to identify who's with us today. And Mitch has already done this. If you want to go ahead and put your contact information into the chat, we always want to encourage networking opportunities for those interested in that. And of course, Bill will be ready for some dialogue. So after his remarks, you know the deal. Save your questions for Q&A and raise your virtual hand or your real hand, or put your question in the chat box and I'll read it, and we'll go from there. So let's get our meeting going. I want to introduce our committee's leadership. Of course, that's Ann Kademian from the University of Shady Grove, and our co-chair, Joan McLaughlin from Sodexo. So Ann and Joan, take it away.
Joan, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I was going to say, and I know you're in the car, so I'll be happy to kick us off. So, Bill, thank you very much for joining us today. It's always a delight, and the timing couldn't be better to hear from you today. Congratulations on your promotion here. Bill is now the President and CEO of MCEDC, where he has just recently assumed that role. Previously, he was EVP and Chief Operating Officer. And I don't know if you had a chance to read Bill's bio, but he has a very deep and illustrious background in media and entertainment, where he kind of got started. But we are very, very pleased to have him at the helm here today, and to spend some time advancing this conversation that we've been having about workforce challenges and workforce development. And as we all know, that is vital to the success of Montgomery County. And so I, will not take up too much more time, but just tell you, Bill, we're looking forward to your presentation. Ann, anything you want to add?
No, thank you so much, Joan and Brian and Bill. We're just delighted to have you here today. Bill is such a great partner with all the education institutions in the county. Really, since he's taken the helm in August, really rolling up his sleeves, sharing data, engaging all of us in a really collaborative forward-leaning kind of way. And I'm very excited about what we can all build together in the county around talent development, continue to build on. So I just want to acknowledge Bill's tremendous collaboration with so many partners across the county, and really looking forward to hearing what you have to say today, Bill, and into the work ahead for all of us. So welcome, Bill.
Well, thank you. Before I go to full screen, one admin thing. When I do, I won't see anyone. So George, Brian, if you don't mind, if there's a question or something where somebody wants me to stop, just interrupt me, because I won't see you when I go to full screen. And not to put you on the spot, we're going to have a conversation about workforce development. And to your point, you are an important part of that partnership. So when we talk about workforce development and what's happening and what the talent issues are, you're an excellent partner to sort of discuss this with me. I'm not the expert. And as you'll hear later on, we're working on several projects with the educational system, and actually just did a presentation to Anne and her senior team a few days ago on talent-related issues as it is associated with USG. And so I think we'll have a great conversation. That being said, I'm going to zip through a few slides, and Brian, I can't see you guys. I'm going to contradict one thing you said. So I've been here 3.5 years, and it's been a very smooth transition because Ben Wu, our predecessor, treated me as a true partner. And you look at the things that we've done over the last few years, good or bad, I was involved. But there's something that's important to me as we move forward, and that's making sure that Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation really does push hard to make economic development a priority for the county and for the businesses that are here. And when we talk about, quote, MCEDC, it reminds me, it's an acronym, and it reminds me of a government institution. So what you will see going forward is, as often as possible, I will stay away from calling us MCEDC other than internally, because I think it's important that we position ourselves as a true public-private partnership. And that engenders, to me, more buy-in from our stakeholders and our community. So there are little nuances that you'll see in terms of my leadership style that will hopefully catapult not just us, but the county forward in terms of a thriving economic engine, not only in the state, but in the country. The slide you see here is one that I explained to our board. One of our challenges is that while we are responsible for economic development here, there are more than 8 entities that also have economic development responsibilities, and none of them have the name economic development in their title. So it can be pretty challenging and confusing if you're a business or a trade association or a nonprofit, when you're trying to figure out where to go and how to get started and how to grow. So as we understand this puzzle, part of our job is to pull all the pieces together such that we talk of one voice and one focus. So you go to Montgomery Planning for lots of activities. They've been in the news recently, but they're an important partner of ours. In fact, they do a lot of our research, believe it or not. And of course, from a zoning and land use perspective, they're critically important. Whether you agree or not, the passage of Thrive 2050 is important. It's a roadmap. It is not a law. And that is a critical part of how we think about economic development going forward. So many of you are experts in this community. You are businesses. You run large organizations, so you know a lot of this. But as we talk about one voice and one focus, it's like herding cats. And I think my single biggest challenge is to make sure that we pull all these cats together so that we roar like a tiger and have that one voice and one focus. And with all of that energy, I think we can push the county forward at a faster pace than we have in the past. Very simply, we're responsible for 4 or 5 things in our charter: business attraction, retention, and expansion. It's all about jobs. It's all about businesses. If you can grow here, if you can expand here, if we can keep you here, and if we can attract more businesses and some specific types of businesses, then that's going to create an opportunity for a domino effect in terms of the county being more successful with its tax base, attracting more residents, and making the county thrive. Marketing is critical. We haven't done a lot of that, in my opinion. So I'm going to talk about what we're doing and how we're trying to accelerate our marketing activities. I see Michael Mitchell, our new Vice President of Marketing and Communications, is on the line. And then there's entrepreneurship. Now, I'll ask you a question. When you think about Montgomery County, do you think that's where the entrepreneurs are? You probably don't, but we talk about it a lot. And I think part of our job is to create an environment and to make sure that the tools are there so that people do think about entrepreneurship in Montgomery County in a much bigger and more competitive and compelling way. Then there's strategic planning. As many of you know, we are responsible now for creating the county's comprehensive economic development strategy, which was approved last year. And that's our roadmap for the next 4 to 5 years. So I encourage you to go to our website to read it if you haven't, because that will provide you some direction and guidance as to what's going through our minds when we think about economic development opportunities here. And then there's economic policy. One of the reasons the Montgomery Chamber is one of our key partners is because they do an excellent job of thinking about policy and legislative matters. And they do that, you do that on our behalf. We don't have the staffing to do that. We should be doing more than we do, but we count on the many attributes that the chamber has, its ability to really think through critical issues at the federal, state, and the local level. And I think we, as an organization, need to be more involved and more engaged in terms of advising the county council and advising the county executive on items that we think are going to be of critical importance in terms of growth. Our mission, which we've updated, I will read it, it's to advance equitable and inclusive economic growth, prosperity, and sustainability in Montgomery County through activities which accelerate the development, retention, and attraction of businesses in key industry sectors. Now, what's important about that is that we've placed a greater emphasis, even before George Floyd in 2020, on being equitable and inclusive. We are one of the most diverse counties in the United States, as you well know. According to one study, 4 of the most diverse cities in the country are here in Montgomery County. Over 150 languages are spoken here. It's a great place to be. And we want to make sure that while we focus on specific opportunities for growth, that we're as inclusive as we can possibly be. And what's our vision for the future? We want to do more than just help sustain growth, but we want to be the convener and driver of successful economic prosperity initiatives and policies which do create job growth and an economic environment that supports a healthy and thriving competitive local economy. And the word competitive is really important because there is a lot of competition out there. We're very fortunate to be part of the DMV, but each component of the jurisdictions that are here are competing for some of the same resources, whether it be talent, whether it be companies, and other items. And we want to make sure that we are known for being innovative and one of the most desirable places to work, with a culture that exudes excellence through our diverse, inclusive, and equity-based work environment. So that's what it's all about. We have 5 goals for this year, and I'm going to skip this slide. The first broad goal is meat and potatoes. It's to make sure that there is job growth and that we're retaining jobs and companies, especially in key industries here. Now, I know a lot of people get tired of us talking about life sciences, but guess what? It's really important. It's something that is unique, not just to this region, unique to certain parts of the country, Boston, Silicon Valley, the Research Triangle. And so you have to go with your leaders. The jobs that the life sciences industry creates are very high paying, and there is a trickle down and domino effect there. So we have to take something that puts us on the stage both locally and nationally and leverage that to a larger extent. But there are other industries that stand out. And I see like Joan being here, the hospitality industry. the concentration of hospitality headquarters, hospitality management companies, real estate investment trusts is overwhelming. We have 80% of the top companies in the hospitality industry right here in the greater Washington area. And all but 2 of those outliers are here in Montgomery County. There are a couple who trickled over to Fairfax, but we're going to work on that. And there are some other industries that we work on. Nonprofits are critical, financial services, certain parts of high tech, and so forth. So that is our focus, in addition to working with underserved communities, especially entrepreneurs. Our second goal is to really develop that entrepreneurial spirit. And there are 2 or 3 things that we're working on that are examples of this. In the hospitality industry, we want to leverage that. We want to leverage the brain trust that is here, the quality of the workforce that is here. So later this week, we'll announce a partnership with Accenture, the consulting firm, to launch a hospitality accelerator, which will bring even more and more startups to focus here in Montgomery County, to be established here, and to really generate a lot of enthusiasm and activity, but also to expand the assets that take place here. Quantum computing, you hear a lot about it. University of Maryland is the center of quantum computing, or at least one of the centers in the country. And so that's a future industry. We are participating as sponsors with the first Quantum World Congress, which takes place at the end of this month. So there's a lot of activity that we're doing, small activities that we think will make a difference in the marketplace in terms of entrepreneurial opportunities. When we talked about women and minority-owned businesses and the importance there, there are 2 things that are examples of what's happening. I'm going to go to the second example first. Some of you may know that the county council appropriated about $800,000 to a group of minority-based organizations to really raise their profile, to allow them to improve their infrastructure, their networking capabilities, access to capital. And most of that money goes through a group called the Black Collective. We have a partnership with them. And what our intention to do is to help create scale and to bring capital to underserved communities by bringing the partners who provide capital to the table. So you'll hear more about that as we go through the year. But I think it's an excellent opportunity to make sure that more of the people who should be at the table are at the table. We're fortunate to have launched the ACE loan program, Accelerating Community Excellence, which are small loans anywhere from $5,000 to $250,000 in loans through a state program where 50% of the loans will be for Montgomery County businesses. The other 50% are required to be near casinos in the state of Maryland. Interesting law, because the money that comes from the state for this program is tied to video lottery terminals. And so as part of that, 50% of the businesses within 10 miles of a casino have to be eligible for these loans. So it's a weird program, but we got $1.5 million, and I think we're getting another $400,000 to provide loans at very reasonable rates to small and underserved businesses. Fourth goal is to work on some strategic projects. So I have 2 examples here. Lots of activity in the county. Finally, the Purple Line is back under construction. And if we're lucky, we may be able to ride on it before we retire. And hopefully we won't have the same challenges that they've had with the Silver Line. But before the pandemic, we started working with Prince George's County and our own county council on the concept of a Purple Line technology corridor. You know, I live right next to the Purple Line. I kept thinking, what do we need this thing for? And then all of a sudden you realize what a jewel of an opportunity it is to connect us with Prince George's County and to really create some excitement and activity there. So we're working on a program with partners to make sure that when it does open, I think it's scheduled for 2024 at this point, that it's a really exciting opportunity to grow our county in a very different part of, geographically, a different part of the county. And then I have what I call my Project Red Rock. If anybody's been following county politics, you know that the county executives, one of his key objectives is to make sure that we establish a North Bethesda / White Flint center of excellence relative to the life sciences industry and artificial intelligence. And we've been working on that. But we also found that because the anchor there is a metro station, a red line metro station, we started working with WMATA on, well, what's happening at Twin Brook, what's happening at Shady Grove. So my thought was that instead of focusing on just the one opportunity, let's transform Rockville Pike from the city line, Friendship Heights, all the way to Shady Grove. And why not take all the red line stations and Rockville Pike and put it together as an integrated opportunity to really enhance the region and a much bigger part of Montgomery County. Fifth goal has to do with marketing. Who knows where Montgomery County is? Well, which one are you in? Are you in the one in Pennsylvania? Are you in the one out west? There are 18 Montgomery counties in the United States. And many of us have given feedback that we don't do enough. So we just a few weeks ago launched a new marketing campaign that we hope will run for multiple years. And here's the concept, something forward thinking about who we are and what we want to be. Everybody here wants the opportunity to write their own story, to be successful, to create something really remarkable, to build their legacy. And Montgomery County is where you can do that. It's the place that empowers you to be bold, to be audacious, to be remarkable. And it's your opportunity to be next, the next success story. So I'm not going to read the rest of this copy, but we have so many success stories, large and small, that we want more businesses to aspire to, and it can happen here because dreams are made here, success happens here, opportunity happens here. This is a place not only to make your business successful, but when you're here, you're also not going to want to leave. You're going to enjoy living here. And we want people to have that feeling of opportunity and success. And through that, we will continue to promote the Be Next campaign. In that campaign, we'll also be businesses, people who have been successful. This is going to run throughout the year. We've had a soft launch, actually October 11th. Ultimately, you will see us on podcasts. You'll see us in print. You'll hear us on radio. You'll see us at bus stops. You'll see us on television. And we really want to build some momentum around why you want to be next here in Montgomery County. And this is just an example of the type of graphic you'll see. This is a broader community-based approach where we'll talk about what makes it exciting, a visionary's dream, a music lover's mecca, a retail enthusiast's paradise. And we'll repeat that message again and again. This campaign will also be adjusted and targeted for the key industries I talked about. So you'll have messages that are geared for hospitality, for life sciences, for entrepreneurs, and then also for the general public. I'm going to shift gears for a second. And I think what I would like to do is skip through our attraction and retention efforts and really talk about some of our partners, and then we'll talk about workforce. Obviously, there are very important government partners, the Maryland Department of Commerce, Montgomery County itself, and of course, all the local jurisdictions who provide the support and the infrastructure, in addition to businesses that allow Montgomery County to succeed. We have a lot of partners whom we have very formal relationships, including the Chamber, but we have the Maryland Women's Business Center, the Latino Economic Development Center, and other entities that provide resources that are an important component of economic development, but ones that we don't have the staffing to do ourselves. So these partnerships are really important. Now let's talk about workforce development. Everybody is talking about it these days. Now the question is, what's unique to Montgomery County? And before I realized that Ann was going to be on the call, I put this on the slide. What about the universities at Shady Grove and Montgomery College and Montgomery County Public Schools? We had started working on an MOU with them to create an integrated approach. And I really should turn this over to Ann because she's got so many programs. In fact, one of them launched, was it yesterday, Ann? The READY program and the 2.0 program for the universities at Shady Grove that take a really comprehensive approach to looking at building that pipeline, you know, starting in second grade and going all the way through the post-secondary process. And it goes beyond teaching. It really talks about how you make sure the right jobs are there, that the business community is engaged and aligns such that the demand for certain types of jobs aligns with the supply that we're creating. And while this is a long-term approach, we really think it's important to have all the educational institutions here aligned such that we, again, are one voice, one focus in terms of creating the workers for tomorrow that are going to make a difference in the pipeline. And right now, there's a huge shortage. You know, across the US, all of you know this, whether you're working at a trade association or whether you're working for Marriott, that there are twice as many job postings as there are employees who are willing to work. And that's not unique to the US, to Montgomery County. But even before the pandemic, we did have this challenge. One of the challenges we have is that not enough of the students who graduate, whether it's from Montgomery College or USG, choose to stay here. Why not? Why aren't we marketing to those students, to those graduates, to make a better case for why you should stay here? So there's a shortage right there. And that's something that is actionable and doable right here in our own backyard. I'm going to stop. And if you want to comment on some of this, because we've also talked so much about skill sets and the difference between a degree and a certificate and what it takes to train people. Do you want to make a couple of comments on that?
Sure. So I'm driving along, so if I'm not going to turn my video on, if that's okay. But Bill, thank you for the chance to say something, but also just this very exciting vision and strategy that you're implementing it's wonderful. We, you know, all of our academic partners, Montgomery College, MCPS, you know, we all have, we're all committed to doing more, you know, together in this work and really thinking about the student journey. And, you know, the only way we address the workforce challenge is to get more people into education. And that's, you know, across the pathway. It's not only students coming up through MCPS into Montgomery College, onto programs at USG or other universities, but it's also people returning to school and people getting additional credentials and people pursuing credentials that might stack. And you know, it's about creating more fluid opportunities for all learners to be able to come in and out of the workforce, advance in the workforce, take new advantage of opportunities in the workforce. And that's going to require a lot more coordination and collaboration in what we do. And I think it's also going to require, with all of our partners, with our business partners, with the chamber, with MCEDC, with others, to really set some broad county-wide goals around what we want to do in this space. You know, focusing from an academic perspective, really focusing on degree completion across all the different stages of education, and really focusing on how we measure, how we go about measuring meaningful employment and sustainable wage careers upon graduation, and retention in the county as well. Bill, you lifted up the importance of, you know, not only developing talent here, but you know, people wanting to stay here and building families here. Community wealth building is so essential. It's based upon people choosing to stay here and grow their families here and invest here. So those are some of the conversations that are ongoing. Bill mentioned USG 2.0, which we launched our implementation model yesterday, but it is a, you know, declaration of partnerships and how we work together in Montgomery County to address some of these challenges. I'll leave it there, Bill. If that's, I hope that
Sure.
provides some input.
Sure. So that's the educational aspect. What about the shortage of labor that's here, and what are we doing at Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation to sort of work with businesses on that? And I'm also going to ask you guys what you're doing, because you're at the center, you're at the front lines, you're the ones who have to open your doors every day for business. And when the talent is not there, how do you grow? So I think it's also important to look at what's happening in the region. And while we don't believe in poaching, the more the region attracts talent, the better the opportunity for us to share in that talent pool. Not everybody who works here lives here. They come from all over the region. And when you think about Amazon bringing 50,000 jobs here over a 5 to 10 year period, that's a benefit to us because it really attracts the type of talent that we want and we're going to need. And they're not going to work for Amazon forever. So to the degree that we see major entities coming to the DMV, whether it's educational institutions, whether it's other businesses that are also coming here, they are attracting the talent that we need at the same time. And we're going to have to work together to make sure that the region has the talent that is needed, and then we will get part of our fair share. The slide that you see here looks at what we are trying to focus on in terms of jobs that are even that much more significant. And when we talk about a higher than normal location quotient, it means that there's really a concentration of an industry here. Hospitality is a good example. And it means that that talent is going to be easier to move around, easier to keep here, because you have like minds wanting to hang together with like minds. High income is important. All incomes are important. But to the degree that we can bring the higher income jobs, it really allows the economy to expand or sustain itself at a faster rate. And where we have tighter than normal labor constraints, meaning once you're here and you have specialized labor, that labor is not going to dissipate as easily. So there's more stickiness. And that happens to fall into 4 or 5 areas: bio and life sciences, healthcare, technology, and knowledge industries. So that explains why we're not always all things to all people. This is an example of the number of job postings that appear in these industries. It's pretty high. So with that, I am going to stop talking and start doing some listening and discussing what we can do, what we should be doing, what the barriers are to a larger talent pipeline, and turn it back over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Bill. We really appreciate that presentation. It was very good. Bill, there was a request that wondering if you could share, or we could share the presentation.
Sure, as long as you let me fix one of the slides that I tried to change last night.
Okay, yeah, send that to me later, and then I can share it with those.
Share it. You know what? Michael's going to shoot me for this, but perfection is a promise that I haven't achieved yet. So go on and send it out, and let's not worry about the extra lines that go across the page. Go ahead and send it out.
Okay, I will attempt to share it in the chat for those who have joined us today. And please acknowledge what Bill said, that perfection is fleeting and unable.
But you know what, I'm looking
to attain. So
yeah, and I'm looking at the group that's here, and I don't want to pick on anybody, but it takes a spotlight off of me. But I'm looking at Leslie Weber. I mean, you want to talk about an industry that has challenges attracting talent and shortages. You know, Leslie, you know this inside and out, and there are all kinds of creative things that Johns Hopkins is doing in terms of its network, and some of them are challenging. You know, I think you're having to pay people a lot more money in some cases. I see Cynthia Grissom, who is with WorkSource Montgomery, who's at the center of bringing businesses together with workforce development opportunities. So I think you've got great people on this call to sort of help us with this conversation.
Thanks, Bill, and thanks for that recognition that healthcare is certainly challenged right now, not just at Suburban Hospital and Johns Hopkins, but our other partners in the healthcare community here in the county. We're all working very hard to especially to try and retain the good folks that we already have, and then to fill those vacancies that are out there. So things like that are going on in workforce development around not even everybody talks about nurses, but we have an across the board shortage in fields of respiratory therapy, in phlebotomists, any number of people all the people that it takes to take care of folks when they come to our institution. So it's all helpful to see the system working together.
Hi, everybody. Cynthia Grissom with WorkSource Montgomery. I'll just add to that because we hear from all across every sector, all their demands and needs and concerns. And it is alarming, but there's also so many social trends going on that are feeding into this issue, as we all hear in the news. But something that just astounds me, the other day I had read how a lot of the young people expect to be promoted every 18 months. And therefore, people are having to provide these different titles, but the titles are empty. They don't really mean anything. So the recruiters don't understand what this even means and what their skill sets are. And it's just adding a lot of confusion to where to place people and what those titles really mean. What's the substantiation behind the titles? What have they done? So skill-based backgrounds where we have actual certs is very handy in this regard. And to Leslie's point, I'm working on a couple of different healthcare task forces and age-friendly kinds of things. We've got real problems with the home care workforce. We've got a task force formed to address this whole thing, but it's going to take some drastic changes involving lots and lots of parties, and maybe something like a rotational to resolve the burnout that people feel. It's physically demanding, it's mentally demanding. People don't stay in it, it's hard to retain the people, but even who gets attracted to it, it's mostly, unskilled immigrants coming in the county, that it's part of their culture of caregiving. So they gravitate to this field, but then there's no upward mobility and they don't have money to increase their skill set. Even when they do increase the skill set, they aren't promoted or given any kind of raise. So we have to look at this from all sorts of angles. And this is just one industry example, but we're trying to be creative on what these solutions are going to be. So any suggestions? Would love to hear them.
Well, and Cynthia, I'll take issue for one that I don't necessarily think as an employer that the certifications or that constant needing for advancement. I heard one of my colleagues at one time talked about it. This is a culture raised on video games. And so they're always looking to level up. It has to be meaningless. I mean, we've done a lot of work, particularly with nursing, not so much with the other fields, about really having clinical ladders for folks. And so there are clear, I see Brian nodding his head. You've heard of this over at Learning Undefeated as well, about really giving people markers and ways that they can know what it is they're trying to achieve and how they get there. And there's some mentorship that goes on from the folks who are more experienced in the workforce. So that kind of continuous learning doesn't have to be meaningless, I guess is the point. But it does take a lot of change in culture, and it takes time to take root. We've been doing this for well before the pandemic.
Yeah, and I hope people didn't misunderstand. It wasn't that the certs are meaningless, they're meaningful. It's we are encouraging that because they actually have some substance behind them. And then you pointed out something else, or just mentioned it. Another problem we're finding is the lack of opportunity for clinicals. We just don't have enough places to put these people to get that hands-on experience, which at the end of the day in the health field, that's crucial. So trying to broaden that and find these opportunities for people has been a challenge.
Yeah, may I add one thing about not just certifications, but opportunities to be able to help people who have come from other places, perhaps with other skills, and found themselves in this country with language issues, perhaps, but in prior work to the college. One of the things that I assisted with was small business development. And so what I'm encouraging is the discussion of delving into what someone's skills are as much as where they want to go in their current career, because some people who are taxi drivers have biotechnology degrees. Some people who are very, very skilled. I know one caregiver, for example, she actually has a master's degree in robotics. And so to see what happens as people move and as they have to force themselves to change careers because of whatever their circumstances are when they came here, if there's a way to meld what existing skills are with what it is that they can accomplish, particularly if it's a financial issue where they don't have the money to then enhance their degree. Those are the types of issues that I think if people are looking for raises and promotions every 18 months, it's because they're not in the field that they studied. And so when they come here, they're trapped. And if there's a way for us to take the knowledge base that someone or a group of people have and enhance that, then we would definitely propel ourselves very quickly in certain areas.
So one of the things that we're trying to better understand, I think we all are short-term trends versus long-term trends. And when you talked about younger people and the impact of the pandemic on what people expect from a career point of view, in the short term, I think you have to be flexible and just shake it out. I met with a group of executives 2 weeks ago, and the group, there were only like 8 of us, and the group was split between those who were demanding that we're going to go back to the traditional model, being in the office. If you want to get promoted, you have to show up, you have to be here, you have to do it. To the other half who said, that's ridiculous, let people do what they want to do. And I think the point is that we have to just adapt in the short term to where people are going and what they're thinking and what they're doing and what they want. But over the long term, I think there is going to be a shakeout that does demonstrate that when you look at what's going to make you successful 4 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the individual is going to have to make certain commitments to the industries they're in, the companies they're in, and that balance is going to the pendulum will not swing back to where it was 10 years ago, but that what trends you're seeing today may not be what the trends are tomorrow or six years from now. And that we have to keep that in mind, as frustrating as it is to fill jobs now. There are definitely lots of shortages out there that are projected for 10 years from now, especially in the industries I talked about. So as we go to raise more money for Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation from both the county and federal sources and other foundations, you'll see us doing more marketing in other markets, trying to attract talent, not just the companies, but the actual talent to come here. It's great to go out. I see Mitch has a background, the Bay Bridge, but guess what? That place has gotten so damn expensive and so out of control.
Golden Gate Bridge.
The Golden Gate Bridge, that it is easier for many companies to recruit people to leave there. Now, granted, yes, people can telework, but I mean literally to leave that region. And we're seeing that in other parts of the country, there are really compelling reasons for us to actually go to those locations and try to get people and companies at the same time to move here. That's a massive effort, but that's one of the stopgap things that we're taking a look at. It's, believe it or not, it's less so in Boston. Boston is just as expensive. Many of you have either worked there or been there, went to school there, and it's an incredibly expensive city. Now, they have a lot of stickiness there that keeps them there. There's a culture there that people like. It's a little bit harder to attract people to move from Boston to Washington, other than the weather. But we are going to look at select locations to try to recruit talent, not just the companies, to come here because they have lookalikes that are here and more career options, better quality of life, and so forth.
Bill, this is Joan, and I just wanted to comment on 2 things. One is the idea of success and what success looks like for these younger kids today and what it looks like for them 10 years from now, because that could be very different. And certainly we are trying to figure that out as well. And then with this whole, remote working, interestingly, we're facing situations now where, we do a cost of living adjustment to your salary, depending upon what city you're in. You're talking about Boston, maybe think about it. And so we have some of the younger folks who are moving from city to city to city. And in some cases, they may live in let's say this area where there's a cost of living is high, and then they move to a location where cost of living is lower. Well, obviously, we're not going to reduce their salary, but they're sort of jumping around, and it's making challenges for us to try to figure out how to manage all of this, because it's just new. It's new. We haven't had to deal with it before, and is that part of what their success equation is going to look like even 10 years from now? Is that what they're expecting? Not necessarily expecting, you said they're going to have to make some commitments, but I don't know if that for them, it's going to be coming in the office, honestly.
Well, when I talk about commitments, it's less about coming in the office, and it's more about a commitment to doing the things that it's going to take in terms of skill sets. And how do you learn that? Where are your mentors? How do you know how to interact with people if you've only done it on a computer screen? And it's not just about the face-to-face, it's building a culture. It's doing all kinds of different things and different models. We're a small organization, 20 people. We have 25 positions. So if anybody wants to help us fill the 5 that are missing, please let us know. We can use your help. But I went from pre-pandemic to going, I want everyone here in this office, and there are reasons why, because I wanted there to be equity. And so that if I was forcing people with different backgrounds to come in, or ones who have kids, and then others weren't allowed to, I didn't think that was fair. Flip-flop to today, I could care less whether you come into the office. As long as the work gets done, and as long as you're here when we need you, and as long as we can demonstrate that there is work to be done here and that we can grow together, or if we have to grow outside in the field, we'll do that. So, and what we are finding is that in many cases, it's, except for Michael and me, older employees want to stay at home. Younger employees do want to come in because they want to see what it's like. They want to experience something different. So back to your point, I don't know what that model does look like down the road, but it's going to change. And that's why I'm all about flexibility. What's going to work today? How do you sort of do some planning such that you're not stuck in a corner a year from now or 2 years from now? And, it is a journey. I'm not coming out with solutions for you, but I'm just telling you how we as a company are thinking about some of these issues.
Bill, this is Ann. I want to build on the terrific points that have been made about pathways and development opportunities and professional growth opportunities for employees and team members. But I also want to lift up the importance that we're finding at Shady Grove, and what we're seeing in the students coming through Shady Grove is that the really essential role of a strong organizational culture that promotes belongingness, and that also promotes, that has a strong sense of purpose. That a lot of the younger people coming into the job market today, one of the first things on their mind is what are your diversity, equity, inclusion practices? What is your commitment to building a more purposeful mission? And so this is also to add, I know it's a very complex challenge of talent development and retention. I think this is core to it as well. I think it's an important part of how we're thinking about attracting, retaining, and as we build our enterprises and grow them, this is really central to talent retention, I believe, as well, especially in this younger generation coming through.
Mm-hmm. So I think many of us have to get out of our comfort zones, and that's not always easy. We did a survey among our staff just about a year ago, and it was an attitudinal survey. Are you going to be here a year from now? What do you like about this place? Do you see promotional opportunities? And I got to tell you, it did not come out very well. I think 80% of the employees said they didn't know whether they would be here in 2 years. And we took that really seriously and started peeling the onion and found out that there were a lot of things that we had control over to change that attitude. One was to listen more. Two, and the reason I showed you our mission and vision, we were told that people didn't know what our mission was. And one of our executives says, but it's right there on our website. Well, it obviously wasn't making a difference because our employees were telling us they didn't understand our mission, they didn't see it. So we took the time to rewrite it and think it through. We did the same thing with our vision. And I was going, oh my God, suppose I'm putting myself out there by doing this. But the feedback has been really good. People say, now we better understand. I don't plan our staff meetings anymore. We have a committee who plans our staff meetings with a real agenda. And that it's like, well, suppose they come up with crazy stuff. Well, if they do, they do. And they'll have to live by that. But the good news for me is while I'm letting go, every week, or now every 2 weeks, not every week, I don't have to worry about putting the agenda together. We're sharing that workload. And it's little things that we're doing that I would have never done before that are helping us to think through tough issues about employee satisfaction and growth opportunities. I did try to get somebody else to do today's presentation so that they could grow and learn, but nobody signed up. So you got me.
We've had a great dialogue so far and haven't even gotten to the point where we've asked for questions yet. Does anyone have any questions for Bill?
I do.
Daisy,
Bill,
go ahead.
Yeah, may I ask, you touched on several opportunities for marketing and
Yes.
Shared with us some of your sort of, I guess, visual ideas of what kind of messages that you're going to promote. Where are you promoting them? Do you have that plan out yet? And the only reason I mention that is because I'm looking at LinkedIn, YouTube. I mean, some of the places that I tend to see, forgive me for saying this, other economic development groups advertising. And I'm just wondering, I know that marketing budget is defined. I mean, you have so many places that you can reach. So I was wondering, strategically where your audience was focused.
We have a very detailed plan. I think the challenge is we're putting $1 million behind this. It really should be about $3 or $4 million bucks. So we have a plan by target audience. You will see us on LinkedIn. You will see us on YouTube. Michael, help me with this. We started out with radio. We will move into more social media starting in actually this month. We will not do television until the beginning of next year. We will start our blogs in about 6 weeks, podcasts, I should say. So you will see us across quite a few mediums, depending on which message it is, whether it's for the broader audience or designed. We'll be doing a lot of trade publications because we're also focused on particular.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think Bill is connection is slow or having some issues. So
Okay, so what Bill is saying is exactly right. LinkedIn and YouTube are key parts of our marketing campaign. It's rolling out in phases. As Bill said, we started about 3 weeks ago. We are, in addition to the different outlets, we're looking at different markets. We're looking at the Boston, Philadelphia, and the Northeast corridor initially, and we'll be able to adjust our campaign as we see results. We will be in upcoming levels looking at some of the West Coast markets, Raleigh, North Carolina area, the triangle down there, and then San Francisco. So yes, and as Bill said, we put $1 million into our initial campaign, but to get to the level we'd like to, and we're building to that, it's going to need to be a much more robust and in-depth campaign, and we are trying to augment what we're doing with, especially locally, because one of the first things you have to do is make your region aware of what you're doing. So it's really key that we hit the DMV area first and then expand out. Did we lose Bill?
Nope, I'm here.
Yeah, sorry, Bill, we lost you for about 10
For a
seconds there.
second, yeah.
Oh, I didn't say anything, so.
Okay. So yes, we hear what you're saying, and we understand. We know that LinkedIn is a lot of it's a good area for the audience we're trying to reach and the constituents and companies we're reaching. So yes, absolutely, it's part of our plan.
Additional questions for Bill and team?
Brian, this is Gus Bauman. Is this a good time?
Please, Gus, go ahead. Gus Bauman from Beveridge and Diamond, also chair of our Infrastructure and Land Use Committee.
Yes, thank you, Bill, for that great presentation. My question is, in light of your laudable and ambitious goals for the Economic Development Corporation, can you take a moment to talk about your interactions, not so much with the current county council and how that is working, but with the incoming council? We're going to have a new council. A majority of the members will be brand new to the council. If you could take a moment to explain how it works between what you're trying to do and what this incoming council may be interested in doing, and then how that relates to your interactions with the current county executive with this new council.
I am happy to do that. First of all, there are going to be 6 new council members. I have almost completed meeting with each one individually over great lunches, coffees, you name it, to talk about 2 things: what's on their agenda and what's on our agenda in terms of economic development and making it a priority for the county. And we've covered everything from, to your point, workforce development issues, to talking of one voice, to making sure that there is better alignment between the county council and the county executive, going back to this one voice theme around economic development. I'm not interested, other than as a citizen, in all the other stuff, but from an economic development perspective, I have built one-on-one relationships with each one, and number one. Number two, last week, the county executive's office, there were like 6 people plus myself. We met with all of the incoming, or we believe to be the incoming council members as a group, to talk about all aspects of economic development in a group setting. And the idea is to sort of hit the ground running, so that on December the 5th, I believe it is, they are well informed, well aligned. They've asked great questions about other things that we can do, about priorities. They've let us know what their priorities are. So I think we'll be in great shape. Now, for those of you who've been around for a while, and I'm learning this, there's a big difference when you get to know someone as a friend or a colleague, and then suddenly they're a public official and they're sitting up there on that podium and have to represent everybody all the time. So sometimes those relationships change, but I feel very good about the relationships that we're building ahead of time. I've talked to Evan Glass several times. We've been trying to sit down to do a one-on-one with the belief that he will be the next president of the council, and to make sure that we have aligned our agendas. I'm meeting with the county executive's office all the time, with one caveat. I made it clear that while we want to spend a lot of time with the council and public officials, I think we as an organization don't have our balance correct, in that we don't spend enough time in the business community. So you'll see me and us meeting with elected officials a lot, but you really want to see us meeting with you guys. to make sure that we understand the pulse. This is interesting. Speaking of officials, Tom Hucker is calling me as we speak. So we're in touch with the old council and with the new. And I feel very good about the enthusiasm, the direction that we'll see, and working of one voice.
Thank you.
Brian, if I can ask a question.
Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks. Good morning, Bill, and thanks for your presentation. Question, you mentioned earlier, just as you look around the landscape of other jurisdictions, communities, what models have you looked at that you think Montgomery County should be emulating? Are there any best practices out there? Who should we be looking at as a model? Are you looking at as something we should be emulating?
Well, there are lots of models out there, but let me tell you, there's some institutional things that get in the way. So let me give you an example. One of the reasons it is a little bit more complex to do business here is because we have something called Montgomery planning and we have Montgomery permitting. No other jurisdiction. Prince George's does have that, but to the degree that we're a large county, it makes life a lot more complicated. They're both good organizations, but we don't have the most efficient and streamlined system.
Oh, come here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good, Bill.
Okay, we don't have the best and most streamlined system to make that process from cradle to a building being built as efficient as some other jurisdictions. I would also say that in Northern Virginia, they work more as a coalition, Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, et cetera, as an entity. They compete, absolutely, but they also work more closely together. And we have created an alliance here in Maryland with the 8 or so counties that are adjacent to part of the DMV, basically, so that we have a more streamlined message. We're working very hard towards this one-stop shopping concept, but we're not there because we don't have, it's not one-stop shopping. So you can't promise something that you don't deliver, but we want to move closer and closer, more and more in that direction. I think we are more competitive, but I think one of the things, and it was brought up earlier, we don't do as much marketing as others. And so that is something that's easier to fix. They may not be doing a better job in terms of economic development, but it may appear that they are because they're out there. You know, they have more consistent messaging, and that's something that we have to do. I think each jurisdiction, you know, how many of you do business in the District of Columbia? People accept it as a huge headache. And I think it is 10 times more difficult to do business in DC, but people manage their expectations because they know that, and they know what the benefits of being in DC are. So I think we have to manage our own expectations about what's good here and why it's good here. And it's not just about business regulations. It's about the quality of life. More and more as businesses move here, they're going to move where their employees want to be, by the way. And if employees, especially after they have get into having kids, we are so attractive. We may not be attractive for the 24-year-old who wants to be in DC or even closer in Northern Virginia. But once they start having kids and settle down, we are perfect. And those are the things that we have to work through in terms of making ourselves appear to be more competitive, because we are. We actually are competitive. We just need to do more to demonstrate and to be top of mind across the region, and even reinforcing with people here that this is where you want to be.
We have more time with Bill, but I don't know if we want to maybe wrap this up shortly. If there's any last questions or last comments before ending the meeting, this is your opportunity. Any last questions? Comments, concerns?
I do have a follow-up, if I could, Brian and Bill. This is Gus Bauman again.
Go ahead, Gus.
You know, a big problem with economic development in Montgomery County is our state delegation from Montgomery County to Annapolis. Unlike the county council, they are not the same type of folks, and they have very little understanding of business and economic development. They just do. And I was wondering, in light of your outreach to the council members, if you and the Economic Development Corporation are doing outreach with the state senators and delegates from Montgomery County, because literally, except for a handful of them, they're oblivious to everything we're talking about on this phone call. And they just are. And they go to Annapolis 3 months a year, and they can do enormous amounts of damage. And I was just wondering, in light of your very laudable goals about what you're trying to do there, if it includes communicating with, in a more direct fashion, with the state senators and delegates from the county.
So Gus, it needs to be a bigger priority. I have not made it as big a priority as I should or could have. So now there's an opportunity. I did sit down one-on-one with Delegate Lily Chi about 2 weeks ago. She, I think, is very focused on economic development. You know, she worked in economic development for the county.
Yes.
And she basically will say the same thing that you just said. So she's our friend.
Yes.
And to your point, we don't do enough. And so thank you for reminding me. There's no reason why I shouldn't be doing the same thing. I do meet one-on-one with some of the delegation, but in terms of your point of view, I would tend to agree with you that there's more of an educational process that needs to take place there. So thanks for reminding me of that. And I will make sure that we make that more of a priority.
Thank you.
Excellent question, Gus. Any more questions for Bill?
I will be around, hopefully for a long time. And you'll see me next week at the awards dinner. I think when we circulate the presentation, my email address is there, but it's simple. It's bill@thinkmoco.com. Don't hesitate to email me, to reach out to me. I'm usually pretty responsive. I was going to say responsible. I better be responsible all the time. But I want to build more relationships. I want to make sure that we understand what the pulse of the community, where it is, and then to your point, how we can sort of pinpoint opportunities to allow for change and growth. So please reach out, and I will try to do a better job of reaching out to you on a more regular basis.
Yeah, I second that. I just know from my experience, I don't know how Bill finds the time. He is extremely responsive to inquiries and emails and calls. So thank you, Bill. And thank you for helping us understand MCEDC a little bit better and its role in the workforce infrastructure in Montgomery County and how we're addressing some of those challenges and opportunities with talent attraction and retention. Something, Bill, that we said up top, we've been focused on in this committee. We've heard in recent meetings from Dr. Williams at Montgomery College and Dr. Kademian at USG. And our most recent meeting was with Anthony Featherstone at Workforce Montgomery. So we've really been delving into this issue and learning a lot more about workforce issues in Metro Maryland. With that, just on behalf of, they can jump in if they want, on behalf of our chair and Kademian and our co-chair, Joan McLaughlin. Thank you on behalf of the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Committee, Bill, for joining us today, taking the time to have a dialogue with us. We really appreciate learning more about MCEDC and learning more about ways that we can all partner together. I see Joan popped up. Any last words, Joan? Please go ahead.
No, Bill, I just want to thank you for your insights. It was very, very interesting. We appreciate your collaboration and your leadership. Obviously, we still have a lot of work to do in this county, but I think you helped us to frame some of what we need to do going forward. which are issues we have been talking about, but still don't have solutions, but good ideas coming to the forefront, I think. So I appreciate your time again and your leadership, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
And with that, everyone have a great morning, and we will hopefully see you on November 10th at our Business Awards dinner. Thank you, everyone. Have a great morning. Bye-bye.